Welcome back to askreddit Discover channel. What was something that happened to you as a child that you didn't realize was scary, creepy, dangerous until you got older? My family's station wagon blew a flat in the middle of the night on I-95, as we exited the city of Miami. I was 5 years old and riding along with my mom, grandparent, sibling, and dad, who was driving when the tire blew. It was the 80s. When the tire blew, everyone freaked out a bit. For some reason, my dad kept driving on the flat, even though we were traveling at a high speed. Eventually the tire wore down or fell off and we were riding on the rim, sparking down the freeway in the middle of the night. I remember the energy in the car turned to fear, but something was off. I was told when I was older, that my dad saw a man in the center median, throw a strip of nails attached to something into the middle of the highway, which my dad could not avoid. Turns out, people were using this method to rob and carjack highway drivers in the middle of the night. My dad somehow was aware of what was happening and responded accordingly by not stopping to change the tire for several miles. Luckily we had a full-size spare. We changed the tire several miles down the road and made it home safely. TLDR, my family was not carjacked and who knows what else because my dad rolled with the punches. Safety tip: if you have a blown tire in the middle of nowhere, your car will drive on the rim. I told my wife this, and that the wheels on her car were only worth $200, so if she needed to keep driving to get somewhere safe, she was only damaging $200 in parts. It saved her once. She had a flat at night and couldn't get help. So she drove a few miles to safety. One completely shredded tire, but the rim was okay and so was the wife. She wasn't even worried, since I had told her to do this. Rolled with the punctures. Your dad is a champion. I remember my dad telling about tourists getting robbed driving from Miami to Orlando. It was a serious problem. Nanny was supposed to pick me up for an after-school thing I was doing. She was a bit late, so I decided to walk home. Thing is, the school was 6 miles from my house and I had to cross 2 overpasses to get there, which I did while lugging my stuffed backpack. I made it about 5 miles before getting too tired and resting next to the sidewalk near the local mall. Then this guy on a motorcycle asks if I wanted a ride. I said yes, because feck walking in the surprisingly creepy home stretch to my house, and hopped on his bike. We ended up talking a bit and I found out he was an armored truck driver named Ray. He dropped me off at my house and that was the last I saw of him. My parents didn't find out until a few years later when he showed up at the house, asking for some cash to buy his kid a Christmas present, mentioning how he'd helped me out that time. Dude, I picture him as Gil from Simpsons. Did you give him some money? You'd think they'd pay armored truck drivers well enough to at least afford presents for their kids at Christmas. A desperate armored truck driver is more likely to help rob it? I'm not sure that's creepy. If he dropped you off where he should have, I think he just saw someone out of breath in the middle of nowhere and wanted to help. When I was younger we moved into a house in the woods. It wasn't completely finished yet, no screens on the windows, unpaved driveway, just dirt and rocks, etc. We also had a huge wolf spider infestation. Apparently the house was built on the headquarters of all wolf spiders in the US. Wolf spiders can vary somewhat in appearance. Some are gray and very hairy, some are brown and more smooth. Freaked out when I saw one at first, but then I thought, they look really cool, so as long as they don't bite me, it's okay. Anyways, eventually I just got used to them. Sometimes I'd see a baby wolf spider and just sort of play with it, otherwise just let it be around while I do whatever I did as a child. Either way, they were everywhere. It wasn't until much later that I saw what young wolf spiders really looked like, and the things I had been playing around with the whole time were brown recluses. Holy cow, you're a spider whisperer or something. This is terrifying but amazing. In 2001, more than 2,000 brown recluse spiders were removed from a heavily infested home in Kansas, yet the 4 residents who had lived there for years were never harmed by the spiders, despite many encounters with them. Is this you? A relative was in the hospital and I didn't want to go in, so my parents let me stay in the car. A woman was in the car next to ours waiting in the driver's seat. A man walked up to her car door and pulled it open. I was young enough not to remember why we were at the hospital, but what he said to her is still clear in my memory: "You're gonna drive me back to your place and we're gonna feck." I remember her yelling something along the lines of "What the feck, no?" And then they started fighting. I got scared and hid where your feet go in the back seat, really not wanting this man to see me. Eventually I heard the car leave. I have no idea what happened and I never told my parents. When I told a friend, he said he was probably her family member and she was crazy. That discouraged me from telling anyone. He wasn't there and didn't hear the man's vicious tone and the woman's terrified one. Holy feck, that's horrible. I'm going to choose to believe that her shouting and calling for assistance scared the guy off and the lady drove herself to the nearest police station to report him. He was later arrested and thrown in jail for a very long time. Maybe it was roleplay. Maybe it's Maybelline. I had a kindergarten teacher who always gave me extra attention. He would bring me little gifts, hold my hand, walk me to the bathroom. After a few weeks my mom started asking me questions, and I told her how he would take me into the coat closet for special talks and would give me lots of hugs. My mom took me over to where my dad was working and had me tell him, and then we all drove up to the school and my dad beat the crap out of him. The next day I was put in a different classroom and I didn't see him at school anymore. When I was in 6th grade I walked into a math class for the first time at the start of the year and he was the teacher. It all just kind of clicked in my brain when I saw him, what he had done and might have tried to do and why my dad beat him up. Needless to say, I went to the principal and made them call my dad, and when they told us that, since nothing was ever done legally and all that, he would keep teaching and he was the only math teacher, my dad put me in a different school. I kind of like mom's mental process there. I'm going to have the kid tell dad himself, so dad will go and beat the living shit out of this guy. That's what I'm doing. I often hear these stories and the parents don't believe the children, so, for your sake, I'm glad your parents listened. I just wish the school did something about it. Who knows how many children he hurt. Wow. That's incredibly fecked up. But I'm glad your parents stood up for you every time.